Thank you for joining today's webinar, Making the Call on Teams Direct Routing, hosted by VoIP First Media, your go-to resource for making informed VoIP decisions. We encourage you to ask questions throughout the presentation by clicking on the question mark icon on the left-hand side of your screen. Please don't be shy. This webinar will be recorded and posted to the VoIPFirstMedia.com website following today's session. To adjust the layout of your screen, please click on the icon in the lower right corner. I would like to welcome our speaker today, Chuck Phaneuf, Channel Specialist with CallTower. Thank you for joining us today, Chuck. The floor is yours.
Yeah, Karen, thank you so much for having me back again. VoIP First Media, thanks again. If you didn't catch our webinar last month, I definitely recommend go checking it out on the website. We covered a lot of products, but today we're going to be focusing directly on the Teams Direct Routing product here. So give me 1 second while I hop into this. Is my screen share coming through for everyone?
You can see it.
Awesome. Perfect. So I'm going to get things started here, Karen. Are we good to go, or we give people a couple more minutes to hop in?
We are good to go, Chuck.
Awesome. Perfect. So Karen already introduced me here, and then here's the agenda we're going to cover. We're going to start with our Teams update, do a little UCaaS, a little CCaaS, and then hop into our direct routing solution, and then wrap up with the CallTower Advantage. So really, Microsoft Teams, if you haven't seen Teams, you've probably been living under a rock for the last year. When the pandemic hit and organizations were looking for ways to get their workforce to collaborate across different locations, Teams became really apparent for a lot of those organizations. Just to hit on the UCaaS and CCaaS market here, so we have some background to what we're hopping into. The UCaaS market is projected to be about $40 billion between 2027 and now, do a ton of growth. It's really going to be highlighted on those small and medium enterprises. A lot of these bigger organizations, they have great solutions already, and they're kind of ahead of the curve. Now we're going to see a lot of small and medium organizations. They're going to be moving in the UCaaS as well as the CCaaS direction. The CCaaS side of the business is going to be growing just as big as the UCaaS side, because there's a whole new generation of customers starting to work with your customers' customers, right? There's people joining that they don't want to necessarily call in to get their bank information changed or get an update on their mortgage, things like that. There's a whole new generation that wants omni-channel experiences with Instagram, Twitter, texting, things like that. We really see CCaaS going to explode on that side of the business as well. So now that we kind of have some foundation to move forward to, UCaaS and CCaaS, we're going to see these sold together for a lot of organizations, even more so for those large enterprises, because they're a complementary sale, right? They're both cloud-based applications, both part of the phone system. We're really going to see these two, I would say, products that go hand in hand, starting to be a bigger part of a lot of organizations, both large, medium, and small. Microsoft Teams, as I already said, there's 145 million people logging into Teams every single day. That's a huge amount of the market. One thing I do like to highlight, though, is, as you can tell, that's not even half of the Office 365 users that are already adopting this platform. There's a ton of area to expand into, a lot of end users to make part of this Office 365, right? They already have access to Teams, they're just not using it yet. A lot of organizations are leaving money on the table there. They might be paying for another solution like Zoom, WebEx, maybe GoToMeeting. Teams is a great solution for a lot of those organizations because they might be paying for it as part of their Office 365 subscription. These are some kind of high-level stats about what's going on across the market and from Microsoft. But again, the big one I like to highlight really heavily here is 145 million people are logging into Teams every single day as of April 27th. I'm sure they've maybe added another 10 million, 20 million since then. This number is growing exponentially. And again, these are just the early adopters. Teams is going to expand across all size organizations, large enterprise, small, medium. We're even seeing verticals we used to kind of lean away from here at CallTower, construction companies, hospitals, even retail locations, because we felt soft phones weren't a great fit for them. But now that everyone's been using Teams for a year plus, we're seeing a lot of organizations that traditionally might have been a better fit for even an on-prem system or a traditional UCaaS platform. They're a great fit for Teams because their end users are already familiar with it. Really, there's some huge benefits to moving to a Teams one, and the ones I like to highlight are a reduction in meetings, right? It seems like no matter what we're doing, we can't get away from those meetings, but it really helps having Teams, less, in-person meetings, less meetings, face-to-face. What we can do is get these meetings in a channel, get collaborating on some Word documents, rather than us all sitting there and making updates in person. We can make these changes on the fly, giving us a lot more flexibility. The big one, though, is reduction in emails. I think everyone out there in today's modern corporate environment feels that they get way too many emails. We can almost knock 20% of those down when getting your internal collaboration inside of that Teams environment. And CallTower, we really can't take too much credit for this. We're not building this Teams user interface. We're not even really getting involved with it. That's Microsoft doing all the heavy lifting, and they really built a great world-class collaboration platform for companies like CallTower to build on top of, with that direct routing platform and integration. Or really, it's so native, I don't even like to use the word integration. It's almost the same way as using, say, like your Verizon phone service on your Apple iPhone, right? CallTower is Verizon in this example. Microsoft is the iPhone, right? Apple, they're building that iPhone, they're developing for it, they're building new applications. Verizon's just the plug-in in the back end to my voice services. That's what CallTower is with this Microsoft Teams application. So again, we can't take a lot of credit for this. There's a bunch of strategic partners we work with because they've built either a great user interface like Microsoft, or as Metaswitch has, a carrier-grade infrastructure, class 5 telco switching, geo-redundant failover options. We're really just here at CallTower bridging the gap between a Microsoft user interface and a Metaswitch backbone. And on August of 2020, Microsoft actually went out and purchased Metaswitch. Was a super exciting time to be here at CallTower because for a lot of our history here, and going all the way back to even 2008, right? A lot of our headache, a lot of our resources, a lot of our engineering time was making Microsoft and Metaswitch play nice together. Now that these two, huge 800-pound gorillas, right, that are used to be competing against each other, they're now working together. It's made our solution even more native. So we take that award-winning Teams user interface, take that carrier-grade infrastructure for Metaswitch, and here at CallTower, we bridge the gap with our direct routing solution. I like to show this slide because marketing's super proud of this, right? It shows all the different things we can do here at CallTower in a Teams environment, right? That Teams user interface is great. Maybe there's some things in Skype for Business the organization is still using. We can pull those into the Teams environment. Maybe it's as simple as, you need call recording or, faxing or some third-party SIP credentials to make work with some of your old gear. We can pull all that into your Teams environment, where a lot of organizations, they can just add stuff, into Teams as a plugin. We're not doing any plugins. There's no other apps for your end users to download or have to worry about logins or credentials with. We do all of this stuff on the carrier grade. Your Mike in marketing, Steve in sales, your corporate end users, they never see the CallTower logo. They log in and out of Teams just like they have been for the last year. Just now they have all these advanced functionalities they might need on the backside to add into their Teams environment. So what does this look like? What's CallTower doing inside of the Teams environment? Really, we're not doing anything inside of the app, right? All of that is Microsoft. Microsoft's doing the heavy lifting. They're creating this great foundation that we then build upon and add our feature and functionality over to. There's some huge new features that have been coming to Microsoft Teams. A big one that I'm not a huge fan of, but my boss loves, is this one they just added in the last update called Priority Access, right? Originally in Teams, when you put someone on a do not disturb mode, you really couldn't be held. No one could get a hold of you. There was no way for them to get a message to you. Now what you're able to do is create certain end users inside of your environment that can override that do not disturb status. So I've added, my boss and my boss's boss to my priority status notifications, so that even if I'm on a presentation like I'm on today and I'm on do not disturb, they can still get a hold of me, and if there's a fire somewhere, I can help go put that out. So there's always new things coming to Teams. If there's a feature you're looking for that's not available, I wouldn't be too upset, because there's something crazy like 400 plus new features on the Microsoft roadmap, and 260 of them are Teams focused. So there's a lot of features coming, a lot of new functionality. Teams is really just starting to hit its full stride. And if we know anything from a Skype for Business environment, right? Microsoft's previous platform it's going to be around for a long time, and they're constantly going to be making updates to it. So why CallTower for direct routing? And I've hit on some of this already, but the ones I like to highlight, and marketing makes my life tough by moving them as far away from each other as possible. I like the white glove porting by CallTower and Teams, right? We get in there, we have a whole telco team that helps you with porting, rather than having to deal with Microsoft directly or dealing with support tickets overseas. We get involved and give you a one point of contact that's US based. They're out of our corporate headquarters in Utah, and they're going to help you work through this whole process. The other one kind of adds on top of that, right? We have live training, 24/7, 365 support. If you go all the way across my slide here, these are US based employees. They're going to help you with things all through Microsoft, all through Teams Voice, devices, porting issues, faxing, right? A one-stop shop for things. Really US-based employees, rather than having to deal with, Microsoft support staff overseas. Some other big ones are emergency services, but the one I like to highlight for a lot of IT buyers is no equipment needed, right? We're hearing cloud-based everything. We want to get everything out of those on-prem data centers that we're paying a ton to store our data in. Let's get rid of all that stuff and move to a truly cloud-based employment. CallTower's been cloud-focused since the very beginning. We've never required our customers to have on-prem equipment to make this work in their environments. So really, there's a lot of things and a lot of reasons to go with CallTower for direct routing. These are just some of them. It's also feature and functionality enrichment. And really, we've been with Microsoft every step of the way. This only goes back 2 years or 3 years, but what this isn't showing is all the development we did in Skype for Business and Microsoft Link and Office Communicator, if we want to go back really far, right? CallTower's been around with Microsoft, kind of walking hand in hand with this process for over 12 years now, and we worked in a Skype for Business environment for 10 plus years, essentially doing direct routing there. Now we're just taking the next step, and we've actually been using Teams as our own internal phone system for the last 2 years, just to find all the mistakes, find all the feature shortcomings, find all the things Microsoft, quote unquote, forgot about, right? And we can add those and add those features on our side of things. We're really getting a ton of things on the roadmap on our side, 260 things on the roadmap for Microsoft's side. There's a ton of things coming to this Teams-based phone system. We're really just the tip of the iceberg for what's going on the Teams phone system side of things. So one of the big features that we added in is CT texting for Microsoft Teams. Our customers and potential customers, they were asking for this, right? A lot of companies are doing texting with organizations. A big one I was working with, they were a rock climbing gym, and they wanted to receive texts and send texts to their customers based on, peaks in activity, or, we haven't seen someone in 2 or 3 weeks. Let's shoot them a text and let them know we're thinking about them. That's all stuff that they couldn't do with the native functionality in Teams. We have a great plugin that our partners YakChat built to plug directly into our Teams environment. You can send and receive texts just like you send and receive internal collaborations. They can be internal people, they can be external people, or even that customer that has a twisted ankle and isn't going to make it to their spin class this week, right? A lot of flexibility there, a ton of different things we can do just by having a deep bench of telco features that we can pull over the top of our Teams environment. Call recording is another huge one, right? There's two different ways we can do call recording. We can do it on the telco level, right? Capture all calls in and out of your environment, which will be great for compliance. Maybe you're a bank and have to store things for 7 years or indefinitely. There's no call recording native inside of Teams, and we felt that that was definitely a huge feature lack and a thing a lot of our enterprise customers were going to need. Ton of different ways we can do call recording. Maybe it's as simple as record everything on Steven Sales' Teams phone number, right? We can do it that way, or do it as, big picture as let's record everything in and out of the entire bank's voice traffic. So a lot of flexibility here. Nothing's required on-prem, and maybe you don't want to pay CallTower for storage. Great, we can export this to some Azure-based storage you already have, or maybe something in AWS you're already paying for, and get rid of the need to pay us for storage. We're just going to capture that for you and immediately export it to either your storage or somewhere else that makes your compliance team comfortable. So I already hit on UCaaS and CCaaS and some of the strengths and why they play together, but I personally feel this is a huge strength of CallTower, right? We can give you that base phone system that works for, simple inbound and outbound calls, but what about if you're, just to stay with my example, a bank that's doing customer service calls and receiving calls to branches, receiving calls to your toll-free number, your customer support number? How do you manage that? Might be time to take a look at a cloud-based contact center, right? So we can help you with those first layer of Teams and get you a stand-up phone system. Then when you need more advanced functionality, more advanced omni-channel integration, things like that, you don't have to rip out that Teams-based phone system. We can just build on top of what your agents are already familiar with, give them the additional tools, agents, supervisors, executive dashboards, live monitoring pages, all things not available in Teams. We're just going to add those over the top and pull them from our telco bench, right? We can go in there and work with our strategic partners. We're not app builders. We never have been. So we lean heavily on our partners, Telax and Five9, some of the leaders in the cloud-based contact center space. And we picked data centers around the country, getting as close to Microsoft, as close to Salesforce, but we also took into account our internal strategic partners, right? And we're in 2 data centers in Atlanta just because Five9 was in both of them, and we wanted to build redundancy on the contact center side of things. So contact center integration with Teams. What's the big advantage to this? Well, the number one is for your customers, right? Your customers are calling in, going to give them a better experience, and rather than having them sit on hold, we can use that presence-based routing feature inside of Teams, see people's Outlook calendars, see their active calls, and make routing decisions based on that, getting a better response time, better experience for the customers, but also helping your agents out, right? We can get the questions answered correctly with skill-based routing, different tiers of routing, right? Make sure the calls go into the right place, because most of the customers, they're expecting a resolution in less than 15 minutes. Want to make sure we're going to make that happen for your organization. Also can help your business, right? Customers are unlikely to continue a business if there's a lot of effort that's required, right? If every time I need to change something on my banking information, if that's a 2-hour process for me, I might start looking for another bank. We can really speed up both the UCaaS side of things and the contact center side of things, giving your customers, agents, let's not forget about supervisors, right? Your supervisors might be used to having, their 15 contact center agents sitting in a cube farm in front of them. Now these people are working remote. You might need more analytics, more tools to keep tabs on your agents and make sure they're being as, efficient as they could be, right? So it's going to be your customers, agents, supervisors, and then in turn helping out your whole business. And again, getting rid of those expensive equipment you need in your server closets and things like that, getting that to the cloud where CallTower can support your business and help you across UCaaS, CCaaS, and even your Microsoft licensing if you need help there too. So that hit on some case studies and how we help these organizations. Allen Press is a writing company out of the New York area, and then Ping is a company pretty close to heart for me. I used Ping irons for golfing for a long time. I did just switch away to some Callaways, but I was really excited when we brought Ping on board. And it was really an easy solution for both of these companies because they both already had Microsoft Teams for different business groups. Why wouldn't they just push that adoption out to more of the business group and start using it for their phone system, even more so when they were forced to work remote come, the beginning parts of early last year, right? So they were able to go from their current on-prem system to working in a CallTower cloud-based one really easy, and they didn't even have to go get, end users upset, create a lot of training, nothing like that, because end users were already using Teams to manage their calendars, do their internal collaboration, and do internal messaging. Really just made sense to add their phone system to it. Allen Press, we did a lot more with them. We helped them with their Office 365 stuff as well to get them fully in a nice cloud-based environment before we started moving any pieces. Then we took out that on-prem phone system and got it to the cloud as well. So kind of two different ways we can help organizations. If you're in Teams as a whole or you're trying to get in that direction, we can help you both ways. So CallTower, this is something that I'm actually really excited about because it was something that wasn't a great story up until recently, right? CallTower, we were really focused on those DoD, the government contractors, and because of that, all of our data centers were US based, right? We didn't have those international points of presence because honestly, we wanted to stay compliant with the DoD because they were keeping the lights on. Those were some of our biggest customers. We wanted to make sure that our government contractors were still happy. But we found a great way to kind of keep these two environments separate so that our commercial customers, they can get the best of the best what the DoD is getting inside of the US, but also get access to 100 different countries, 6,000 different cities. We've expanded out our international reach to get Asia, Australia, Europe, right? We're really expanding out to a lot of those big business centers, helping a lot of our local customers with their international locations as well. This is something that the sales team was pushing for a long time, and we just had to make sure we had the compliance and the security protocols in place to make this happen, and we're super excited about this. So Teams calling plans, options, and design, right? It wouldn't be fair if I hopped on here and only talked about my solution and didn't talk about the other options out there, right? Direct routing is great. It's an awesome solution for a lot of organizations, but I wanted to make sure this was educational for everyone, if maybe even direct routing wasn't a good fit for you. So this is what CallTower does. We use that native direct routing features. But there are other designs, right? There's other ways to do this. You can go out and work with Microsoft themselves, right? But it's do it yourself. You have to build your own training, and you're working with someone overseas. You might not get a lot of support from Microsoft depending on the size of your organization. If you're not 3,000 plus seats on an enterprise agreement, it might be a 4-day sort of turnaround for your support tickets, things like that. It's also a do-it-yourself sort of network. You don't have peering points. You have to port things yourself, and there's no device support like you get when you go with a native direct routing partner, right? Kind of a lot of the shortcomings over here, we've already built into our solution, right? We use that full Microsoft PBX. We give you training, we give you resources, we give you US-based support, US-based resources, multiple automated failover options, right? A lot of things you gain from this, right? Another approach, right? Another good way to do this is direct routing with partners with a third-party PBX, right? This way is not technically supported by Microsoft like we are, right? It uses a third-party core platform. The reason I don't really like this, and I'll hop into in a little more detail in the next slide, is you're just adding more layers of risk, more complexity, and more cost, right? You're paying for a third-party PBX and a Teams PBX. You're definitely going to be getting double charged from some stuff there. We think Design 2, the native direct routing, is a slightly better approach. Then you can even take the third-party approach where you take a standalone PBX, some sort of integration software, and then plug that into a Teams environment, right? This, you're adding another leg of the journey. You're taking a third-party PBX, a plugin app, and Teams. Let's hope that all three of them are on the same version, make sure they're all updating correctly at the same time. A lot of points for failure here, and there's no click to dial from Outlook. You have to click from Teams and then hop over to that calling app and then make a call there. We think that's kind of silly. We prefer design 2 where you're plugging CallTower directly in, kind of like you plug Verizon into your iPhone, right? There's no other app to make calls, nothing like that. So here's kind of a more diagram picture of it, right? There's the native direct routing version where you have your Teams-based phone system using our dedicated connections, right? In our Chicago data center, CallTower is on the 5th floor, Microsoft is on the 7th floor. So our dedicated connection to them is essentially a 25-foot fiber connection, right? That goes from our cage over the elevator shaft, up a floor, right, bypassing the 6th floor, and then directly into Microsoft on the 7th floor. That's about as close of a connection as you can get. And then there's no other plugin, no additional risk, no integrator, right? There's no other platform sitting here. We're using our CallTower backbone and then that Teams user interface, plugging these directly in together, not adding an additional layer of risk with that integration factor. So there's a couple different ways you can do this, and Microsoft has made it a lot more flexible for organizations. It used to be when this first rolled out, you had to upgrade to an E5 to even think about using the Teams-based phone system. Microsoft kind of saw the error in their way, and now they've opened this up to both E3, E1, and all of the small business licensing for those organizations under 300 users. So really, you take that E1, that E5, that same licensing you already have, you add that phone system built by Microsoft, great pricing if you're a nonprofit or maybe a educational space, something like that. There's some great discounts for those sort of organizations. Audio conferencing is optional. Then you're adding our CallTower direct routing calling plans. This is billed per user per month, just like your E5, E3, or E1 would be, right? Rather than billing for your whole organization or throwing bundles at you or minutes and DIDs, we bill this just like Spotify is billed or just like Microsoft licensing is billed per user per month. Karen, any questions so far? I want to make sure I opened up for questions when we got to this point.
We actually do have a question. How scalable do you believe is Teams in the context of contact centers?
Yeah, great question. So let me pop back a couple slides here. So really, I think Teams without CallTower in the mix or without a CCaaS provider in the mix, you're right. There's not a lot of scalability there, right? You're going to build call queues. I was working with an organization. They have 300 rental properties, right? That they need a unique auto attendant for each one. That's going to be an absolute nightmare to manage inside of Teams with 300 auto attendants, 900 call queues because we have one for accounting, one for maintenance, and one for account management at each location, right? We're going to have 900 call queues. That's going to be an absolute pain to manage through Teams, but we can go out and grab our CT Cloud Contact Center and create some if-then statements there, right? Create some smart routing decisions, right? Create when you call in from a 617 zip code. I know you're looking for someone in Boston. Let me send you the Boston area code and get your question answered quicker rather than sending you through that maze that is 300 auto attendants and 900 call queues. You can really simplify things on the CT Cloud Contact Center side of things. But all these agents, these account managers, these maintenance people in these buildings, they're still using that Teams user interface. We're just routing these calls differently. Great question there. And Karen, I think you said there was one more as well.
No, that was the only one.
Oh, awesome. Great question there. Whoever asked that one, I definitely owe you a DoorDash gift card or whatever the giveaway is here today. Perfect. So I talked about these versions and the different ways you can integrate, the different options, and a lot of misinformation out there because this was the case for a long time. Remember, you don't need to be on E5 to get access to this great phone system that Microsoft has created for both small businesses and enterprises, and then opened up the back end to people like CallTower to do pricing. So really, there's a couple different ways we can do this, and I always recommend if you're looking for a new Microsoft partner, it's worth having the conversation here as well, because we can move your Microsoft licensing over to CallTower. We've been a gold level CSP, and we've been doing this since 2008. So when we started moving away from Cisco and moving to Microsoft, wanted to get some complementary services as well. Supporting Office 365 became super apparent for us. So what we're able to do is take advantage of that formal Microsoft CSP program that they created. If you've already purchased your Microsoft licensing directly through a reseller or on your own, something like that, we can definitely still help you. We just send you an email with our CSP acceptance and our invitation to join our environment. Your global admin clicks accept. We hop in and we kind of take the keys and run with it from there, right? We're deleting your other CSP's licensing, doing an audit, making sure you're not double paying for anything, and then trying to find you some bundles where we can maybe save you some money behind the scenes. So this is a great way we can help you. And we really started doing this because it gives the customers one place to go for both a Microsoft support and a phone system support side of things. Whether it's a issue with PowerPoint or a issue with their physical device, they're calling one place, really simplifying things for both the IT team, the customer, and anyone else that might be involved in the project. So really, I just kind of hit on this a little bit, but the CallTower advantage, right? Where can you get UCaaS, CCaaS, conferencing collaboration, and networking optimization all under one roof? CallTower is really one of the only places you can do that. It starts with our bread and butter, right? Cloud-based UCaaS solutions. We've been working with Cisco since the very beginning, right? We would walk into conference rooms in 2002 and we would mention cloud really early on. And if the IT buyer looked out the window when we mentioned cloud, we knew we were in the wrong conference room and knew it might be a chance to get mad at one of those, BDRs that set the meeting or something like that, right? So really, we've been doing cloud since the very beginning, and that gives us a huge approach because we're working with Cisco, Microsoft, and Metaswitch, right, our rebranded CT Cloud Voice. We work with them for as long as they've been in business and as long as they've been doing cloud-based solutions. We add our contact center on top of that, right? Where can you get UCaaS and CCaaS? Some of the leading providers out there, Five9, Telax, Intermedia, right? These are all the leading cloud-based CCaaS providers out there. We're partnered with all of them and working with them to get their leading CCaaS environments to play really nice with our UCaaS environments. So you can add in UCaaS, CCaaS. Don't forget about the Office 365 and even our CT Cloud meetings, now powered by Zoom. We use that Zoom technology because it's one of the leading user interfaces out there, but we take a huge approach differently than what Zoom does, right? Rather than having this hosted kind of across the open network, we host it locally inside of our data centers where we have control over who's getting access to these and things like that, really giving us a ton of flexibility on top of that great user interface. Same thing with Cisco WebEx, and I already talked about our Office 365 offerings. But a big thing where we're starting to specialize a lot, and this is something that we weren't getting a lot of questions about a year ago or so, but a lot of organizations, they're using a ton more cloud-based apps than they were 12 months ago, 18 months ago, that might be taking a little bit of a toll on their bandwidth they have available, right? Some organizations have a set amount of bandwidth coming into their building. They really don't have a lot of control over that. They can go out and maybe get a second redundant bandwidth connection. But what we're finding is a much better solution is let's optimize that bandwidth, right? Let's prioritize things like your Teams-based phone system, uploads and downloads to SharePoint, right? That executive that's in the briefing room doing a video conference, let's prioritize that. Let's deprioritize things like Spotify, Instagram, Netflix, things you really don't want your organization using and definitely don't want them hogging up your bandwidth when there's important meetings going on during business hours and things like that. This kind of dives a little bit into it and kind of highlights a lot of those points I hit on, but really we're a one-stop shop, right? Full turnkey solutions from the UCaaS, the CCaaS, the conferencing collaboration, the network optimization. We usually start with your small little IT group, right? Let's start with those 10 IT people, put this thing through the ringer. Let's try out the UCaaS. Let's try out CCaaS. Let's test out our optimization. Then let's start to roll it out to different business groups, different branches of your bank, whatever the use case might be. We're not saying rip all this out one weekend and throw everyone to the wolves on Monday morning. Really, let's start small. Let's put this thing through the ringer. Let's test it out and make sure it's a great fit for your organization before we get too far ahead of ourselves. I wanted to throw, Karen, if it's all right here, I wanted to take a couple minutes and talk about our direct routing for GCC High, because what we're finding is a lot of organizations, they're doing a ton of business with the government themselves now.
Absolutely, Chuck. Go ahead.
Perfect. So really, maybe this might be a good time to open up for some questions, but how many people out there are getting a government contract or doing things with the government, or even seeing what used to be one or two small government projects are now becoming, a good part of your business? And maybe even more importantly, are you getting questions from those government organizations about where your data is being stored? How are you GCC High compliant? If you're getting those sort of questions, CallTower's got some great solutions for you, right? Where we actually started building our organization is we went out and we focused on those DoD customers, right? People making the manufacturing parts, people doing the research and development, people doing a lot of different things for the DoD. Even one of our customers, they make life jackets for the Coast Guard, right? They nothing really super high tech, but they were getting questions from the Coast Guard. Where's your data being stored? Where are you keeping the orders on where those life jackets are going for every branch? Things like that. So rather than having to worry about individual pieces of data and what's being stored where, what's ITAR compliant, what's not ITAR compliant, things like that. So what they did is they took their whole environment and moved it to the government community cloud high encryption space there. Being in that Office 365 environment is a lot like the nonprofit cloud environment, just with a lot more security, a lot more encryption, and really less options because of those compliance and encryption requirements. So what we're able to do is, because it's where we focused, is we can use that same backbone, that same infrastructure we've been, using for our Cisco highly encrypted phone system. We can adapt that to work with this GCC High environment and bring that phone system directly inside of Teams, even for those with the highest and most strict compliance requirements, because Microsoft is doing all the heavy lifting on the phone system side of things, on the development side of things, compliance, encryption side of things. CallTower is just the dial tone provider into the solution, and we've been working with these DoD partners for as long as they've been even looking at the cloud. So when GCC High really took off for Microsoft, we were super excited because we're already working with a lot of these DoD organizations. We already had the encrypted backbone, and this is really where we focused our big effort inside of Teams. Now these highly encrypted call paths, everything we learned working with these DoD partners, we can work into the commercial side of things. And really, we've been creating an encrypted phone system for both people that are, maybe selling some sort of weapon to the government, or maybe they're just a small real estate company that wants as much information encrypted and secure as possible. They don't want their client list getting out of there. Ton of things we can help with, and GCC High and Teams, I think it's just a perfect use case of that, right? The most highly encrypted Microsoft cloud, the leading user interface on the market right now, and CallTower really bridging the gap between those two environments. Karen, any new questions come out or anything new? I want to make sure I have plenty of time for questions here.
Not at this time, Chuck.
Perfect. I think I'll probably just sum everything up here, Karen, with a quote from our CRO, William Rubio. William's a great guy based out of Miami. And what I really I like this quote because it shows, like I said, we were one of the first people inside of the GCC High space. And we've been working with the DoD partners, working with those big names you recognize that I can't say because we're under NDA, but really those people, they trust us with their phone systems. Now these real estate companies, these construction companies, these healthcare companies, hospitals, right? If we can be encrypted enough for the DoD, we can definitely help your local real estate company make some steps in the right direction. Awesome, Karen. Thank you so much again for having me. I really want to thank the whole VoIP First Media team for having me on. And again, this is one of, I think, 4 webinars, or 2 of 4 webinars, one from last month. And then we have 2 more coming up. They're going to dive deep into our other solutions. We talked high level on that first one, and then this was CallTower's direct routing solution. Again, we're going to talk Teams, or we already talked Teams. We're talking CT Cloud Meeting coming up, talking WebEx coming up. So a lot of things coming here, and definitely go check out our webinar from last month. That was a great one as well.
Excellent, and thank you, Chuck. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining today. We will be in touch regarding your lunch. We hope you enjoyed today's session and look forward to seeing you at the next event. You may now disconnect and have a great day.